good. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeff Williamson, the Communications Director here in Orange County Government. With me for this press conference today, of course, is our Mayor, Jerry L. Demings, who will speak in a moment. We have John Sproles, the Chief Executive of Universal Parks and Resorts. Rhonda Rhodes, the Vice President for Human Resources for Universal Orlando. Commissioner Christine Moore and Commissioner Victoria Siplin. Terry Prather, who was the co-chair of the Housing for All Task Force. And those are our guests that are here with us. And Commissioner Betsy Vanderlei is here as well. Welcome, Commissioner. Thank you all for being here. And thank you to everyone who has supported Mayor Demings and the Housing for All Task Force. Today we have an important announcement regarding a public-private partnership with Universal on affordable housing as it relates to the Housing for All Task Force and its recommendations. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Orange County Mayor Jerry L. Demings, who will provide details. If you have questions for anything other than the Housing for All, on any other topic, if you wouldn't mind waiting until the press conference is over, Mayor Demings will make himself available. But to talk about this wonderful announcement between Universal and Orange County government for affordable housing is our Mayor, Jerry L. Demings. Mayor?
All right, thank you, Dr. Williamson, and thank you to all of you for joining us here this afternoon. When I took office as the Orange County Mayor 1 year ago this month, a top priority was addressing the affordable housing crisis in our community. The Housing for All Task Force was launched in April, and members delivered a thoughtful and thorough 10-year action plan last month that will be presented to the Board of County Commission tomorrow. As the task force was working to come up with a plan, I began a series of meetings with some of Orlando's top employers to ask them to become part of the affordable housing solution here within our community. Universal Orlando, whose CEO is with us today, was one of the major employers I met with in the past few months. They welcomed an affordable housing discussion, and I had a chance to express my vision. Universal Orlando leaders were so receptive, they asked for time to assist us in formulating a plan. Well, that plan has now become a reality. I'm excited today to announce that Universal Orlando will make 20 acres of land available to Orange County for roughly 1,000 future affordable housing units within the tourism corridor. Universal will also make an additional 3 acres of land available for mass transit in that area. As you know, we see the two issues intertwined together, both transportation or transit and housing affordability. We couldn't be more excited. While details are being worked out at this time, this will enhance our affordable housing plan to give residents the options they need to live and work near their employment centers. See the area on the map that we have here to my area, which is a prime location in our tourism corridor. I do thank Universal Orlando for their vision and support in this effort. And at this time, I'm going to ask the CEO, Mr. John Sproles, to come forward and share with you a bit of additional information, and then we will take some questions. Actually, Mr. Terry Prather will speak after Mr. John Sproles. So, the CEO of Universal at this time.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. Universal has always tried to be aware of and sensitive to the needs of the community, and we've tried to respond to that in a number of different ways. We respond with charitable contributions. We respond with our Universal volunteers, and I'm very pleased to announce that our Universal volunteers have given over 40,000 hours back to the community this year. Affordable housing is a major issue for the community. It's why we took the mayor's invitation to be part of the Affordable Housing Task Force so seriously. It's why we asked Rhonda Rhodes, who's one of our chief human resource officers, to be part of that task force, because it's about people. They've worked very diligently, and we have worked internally to try to figure out how we could do something in response that would be as big as we could and would be in response to be part of the solution. So I am thrilled that we're going to be able to make this land available for the critical needs of affordable housing. I want to thank the mayor. I want to thank the county commission and the county for their partnership and allowing us to be part of the solution. And we really look forward to working out all those details over the coming months. Thank you.
Mr. Terry Prather.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And I would also like to echo that sentiment that I'm excited. The fact that we started this journey back in the spring when the mayor asked myself and Alan Keene if we would lead this task force, we had no idea how much work it would be, but we also had no idea how many partners would show up and show support for this effort. So on behalf of Alan Keene, the co-chair, and the 30-plus members of the task force, I say thank you to Universal, thank you to the mayor for this vision. The task force report will be presented to the commissioners tomorrow, but there were three things that really stood out to me, and we could see that happening right here in this project. We talked about innovation, we talked about involvement, and we talked about incentives. This is all of that in one, and Universal has stepped up in a big way to show support for not just affordable housing, but housing. Because at the end of the day, we all know that we're in the people business, and we are fortunate here in Central Florida to be blessed with a place that more people come than any other destination in the U.S. But that blessing carries burdens with it. And as leaders in the community, Universal and the mayor, as the leader of our county, have stepped up with a plan that will make a difference, but we know that we still have a ways to go. We still have work to do to really make this a place that all people have an opportunity for housing. So thank you, Mayor.
Let me just say thank you to Terry Prather as well for his leadership with the Housing for All Task Force during the 8 months or so that they met. They did a yeoman's job of really looking out for the needs of our entire community, and we will be forever grateful for that. At this time, I will open it up for any questions. I will say that we are joined by Orange County Commissioner Maribel Gomez Cordero as well. Okay.
Mayor,
yes,
what does it mean for the people there's some people that claiming like 100,000 families in Orange County paying more than 30% of rent at this moment. What this announcement has to do for the hope of these people to get better housing or hope for the future?
Well, we have a number of initiatives that were in place prior to even the Housing for All Task Force meeting. But what we tried to do is say that within this 10-year plan, we want to increase the total number of housing units that are affordable for our community. And so it was a group of stakeholders. We had one individual who had been homeless herself, and she began the task force membership from a role as a student with the Florida A&M College of Law and has since graduated. So we wanted to make certain that we cover all of the various aspects. And so this plan that we're announcing today in partnership with Universal complements the work of that task force, because one of the ways that we're able to keep the overall cost of housing developments down is when you're able to offset the cost of the land itself. And so with the acreage that Universal is donating in this case, which is in a pristine area here in the tourism corridor, that's high dollar real estate in that area. So our ultimate goal is to reduce the overall cost of housing as well as transportation to get to work. So if people are closer to where they work, they can walk to work, they can bike to work, they can take perhaps a circulator within that immediate area. They're able to reduce the total cost of transit or transportation in that household, which then leads to greater flexibility of the dollars in that particular household that can be spent for other things in this area. So yes, we do have 30%. Actually, we have many individuals who spend more than 30% of their total household income towards rent payments, which means that they are chronically rent stressed, and we're trying to reduce that number here in Orange County.
Mayor, can you tell us a little bit of detail about, first of all, how this transfer is going to take effect, and also what the land's value is right now, and who's going to be responsible for developing it?
Okay. Well, what I would do, land would be transferred into what entity that would occur. And that will happen over time. In terms of who would develop it, that remains to be determined as well, because what we're seeing here is through improved processes here within the county, with the availability of land in this area, we should be able to develop a housing unit with 1,000 units of rental units there at a price point that is lower than the current average rent payments in this community, that will make it affordable for those individuals to live closer in the corridor to this tourism corridor that we're talking about. Our vision for this area, by the way, goes back 20 years. If you look at the map to my far left, that map is from 2001, and it shows a transit station and corridor here. And so we have been consistent now in trying to ensure that we're looking at this very comprehensively for the entire area.
Mayor,
Okay.
Is there,
Yes.
You say there's no time frame or no development, that sort of thing, but is it possible that, since your suggestion for a discussion tomorrow is to potentially spend CRA money on things other than transportation, isn't it possible that could be the funding mechanism to go along with this housing?
Well, this is a long-time vision, I think, of mine as we move forward, because I do believe that the current iDrive CRA, when it was approved decades ago, it was approved exclusively for transit or transportation infrastructure needs within that area. I do believe that that's a conversation that the Board of County Commission can have going forward about long-term, as you now know that I've said that in terms of extending the CRA now, we will not make that decision. That is not going to be part of the decision-making process tomorrow. But I believe going forward, we should expand that CRA to also perhaps pay for housing or housing affordability there in that area in addition to transit.
Mayor, why not just
Okay, I'm going to go over and then I'll come to this area.
Was
Yes.
this announcement in response to the reaction from the folks in that area afraid of affordable housing and values?
Okay, in terms of the response, the meetings that we've been having now with Universal Studios and other corporate community partners here, they've gone on for months now. I've been mayor for 1 year, and as you know, I have said that housing and transportation were important because the citizens of Orange County have indicated to me that that was important to them. From the creation of the Housing for All task force to talking about the transportation tax. So this is all kind of coming together. I think at one point it's a unique opportunity that we have because of the many discussions that we've had even with Universal. It took time within Universal to understand the vision. Remember that our Housing for All task force just concluded its work last month and came forward. And since then, we have continued to have dialogue. And so as a result of this continuous dialogue that has occurred for months, what has happened now is you hear the announcement. We just worked on the mechanics of about the announcement towards the middle of last week. And so I wanted to make that known to the public. This is a transparent process that we have, but sometimes when you're engaged in negotiations, there has to be a level of, I think, trust amongst those who are partners to the negotiations, and so the dialogue has been continuing. The decisions that the Board of County Commission has to make are decisions that are in the best interests of all of our residents and our corporate community as well. And so, yes, within that, we listen to our residents, our taxpayers, and we're trying to make decisions that is in the best interest of all of us together. And so I think this is a win-win situation for all of us.
Mayor, you mentioned
And I'll go over here and then I'll come back to the
you
next.
mentioned looking at other options for the CRA money. Why not just let the CRA expire so that when it goes into the general fund, you've got total flexibility to spend it on whatever priorities you deem most important?
That's a decision that will be made in the future. I think sometimes, though, we want to have the best options for us, and it may expire and it may not. We may, again, say that the best solution for the entire corridor of property owners in that corridor might be to include housing as part of that. Because, again, these are individuals that would basically agree. We have to demonstrate a particular need in the area in order for a CRA to be approved in the first place. And so I would say that I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse here. We're simply trying to make certain that the stars align appropriately. Question from the middle.
Can Mr. Sproles answer?
Okay. Mr. Sproles, one of the questions I know they asked is the value of the land. They own the land, so maybe they...
There's a lot of answers to the value of the land, and I'm not going to get into that now. You can look at, I don't think we pointed it out on the map, but it is this parcel right here. This is 23 acres, and we are designating 20 acres for affordable housing, and 3 acres we are holding until we find out what types of transit solutions happen in that area, but we want to hold those 3 acres so they'll be available. In terms of how we're going to present the land, we don't have an answer yet. And the reason we don't have an answer is we want to find out what is the best way to convey the land and to make sure it doesn't get used for anything but affordable housing. So we may put deed restrictions on the land. We may form a partnership with the county. We're not sure yet. Where's the best place? We may lease the land for $1 a year for 100 years so that we maintain control in the sense that we make sure that affordable housing is the only thing that happens there. So that's all to come.
Was this moved to appease the residents in the area, hearing some of the pushback?
No, this was we've been talking about this since the Affordable Housing Task Force was put in place. That's why Rhonda was put on the task force. And we've been talking about how do we respond. I mean, I think clearly people responding with money is important, but is there a better way? Was there a bigger way to do something? And having that parcel of land and knowing where it is, and you can see there are other housing developments around it, so it comes in and should fit nicely with the rest of it. But by donating the land, we ought to be able to make it extremely affordable because whoever ends up ultimately developing the land doesn't have to pay for the land costs.
Can you tell us, did the company feel any pressure to provide this now in advance of the public hearing on Tuesday?
No. We didn't feel any pressure to provide this because of the hearing tomorrow. We've been working on this for months. It's just taken a while to come together. I think if you can imagine, number one, we're a fairly large corporation with offices and headquarters, and there was a number of people I had to convince that this was the right thing to do for this community. And then once it came together and once the Affordable Housing Task Force finished its work, it was, okay, how do we do that? And so we met with the county to try to make that happen. I think it's more, this is being announced today because affordable housing is on the agenda tomorrow with the Board of County Commissioners.
We'll take 1 or 2 more questions.
Okay, and I'll follow up with that question. In terms of timing, for me, this is good news. I did not want to sit on it much longer, especially since we are going to have a conversation before our board tomorrow, and so I wanted our board to be very much aware of where we are at this point, and I wanted the public to be aware of this as well, because I believe that this announcement today matters. It matters to people who want us to surely address the housing affordability crisis that we have here, as well as the transit challenges that we have as well.
And to the folks who still have property there, if they're still afraid that their values might be going up and that they won't be able to afford it and maybe not get into this 23 acres, what would you tell them?
What I would say is that if you own property, you want your property value to increase. You don't really want your property values to decrease, because for most of us, especially when we talk about an investment in our homes, it is the single most important investment that we have. And so I want to ensure those residents that over time we have seen these types of developments. Universal has been here in this area, and when they built the first parks, there were neighborhoods around that park where some of the residents felt that they would be displaced from their homes. Quite frankly, that hasn't happened, and it likely won't happen in this case either.
Mayor, you had referenced 1,000 housing units, was that correct?
That's correct.
And this is a 20-acre property, so we're talking about 50 units per acre. That suggests a high-rise facility. Is that what we're looking at?
Very likely. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I know you said...
And it could be, a mixed use where there's residential and retail there. We want that property to be the type of property where anyone would love to stay, regardless of the price point. We want it to be a very nice property.
Might there be any market rate housing on that property?
That is unknown at this point, but in either case, part of the plan of action for the Housing for All Task Force is, you'll hear it tomorrow, but we want to create really a housing trust fund there, and we'll be able to do some extraordinary things, I think, with that trust fund, such as buying down rent payments, a portion of it, if you will, for market rates to something that is more affordable for the workforce. So all of those are the types of things that I envision that this will allow us to do in that particular corridor. And one last question.
Yeah, target completion date for this, and I know you mentioned 1,000 units for this project. How many more units ideally would you like to see in your 10-year plan, or how many more are you looking to go for?
Certainly the 10-year plan calls for about 11,000 units, but we want to really, in addition to what may have been coming through the pipeline for at market, we certainly want to create as many housing units that are affordable as we possibly can. And I believe that this gives us momentum. I believe that as time goes on, when people see and understand what we're doing is something that is executable, then we will get additional partners from the private sector to come forward and assist us in this process. So again, I think this is good news for us today. Thank you all for coming. You'll hear much more about the details of the Housing for All plan at tomorrow's Board of County Commission meeting. Thank you very much.
Photo, Mayor, very quickly. Go ahead, come on up.
Okay. Photo.